Last week I shared with you a meditation on spiritual realities following the gospel in which Christ drives out a legion of demons from a man in Gadara, north of Galilee, across the lake of Galilee. And I talked to you about the reality of the demons in the life of Christians and how they came to be. And I talked to you also about the story of Tobit from the Old Testament, in which we encounter, for the first time in the Bible, a direct intrusion into the life of an everyday believer by a demonic entity, in this case, named Asmodeus. But the good news is that that also represents one of the first indications of a named angel of God also getting involved in the life of the everyday believer to bring healing and protection and restoration. And that was the angel Raphael. Now, on Tuesday of this week, on November 8th, Orthodox Christians, on the new calendar at least, will be celebrating the Feast of the Holy Archangels, which include Raphael and also the two others that you probably already know, Michael and Gabriel, and also a bunch of others whose names you've probably never heard before or have forgotten if you did, because we don't hear much about them and they're not really laid out for us in the scriptures directly. But the reason that we include those names is because in the book of Tobit, Raphael himself mentions that he is one of seven kind of archangels that stand before the glory of God. So today what I'd like to talk to you about is the angels. It's not directly related to the readings we just had, other than maybe to recognize that the ministry of angels is very important. Just as we said that the emergence of the problem of demons came to a head at the time of the New Testament and is seen to be one of the core issues in the ministry of Jesus Christ, we could also say, though, on the upper hand, that the ministry of angels also comes to a head at the time of the life of Christ. We see the angels that were referred to, especially Gabriel, taking an active part in the life and activity of Christ. It was angels, as we see in the icons, that heralded the incarnation. It was angels that ministered to Christ after his temptation in the desert. And it was an angel that ministered to him after his agony in the garden. It was angels that were the first ones to proclaim the resurrection of Christ. And it was angels that followed him and carried him up in the ascension. So the visible role of angelic beings came also to a head at the time of Christ in the New Testament. But how do we get there from, say, the beginning? Well, if demons were the kind of the power behind the evil thrones of the world in their day in the Old Testament, and really weren't seen to be visibly taking an active role until much later, we could say kind of the same thing about angels. However, they do appear to be more recognized earlier on. In the book of Genesis, after all, we have the angel wrestles Jacob, right? But in the book of Exodus, they're really quite visible because they're depicted in the artistry of the Ark of the Covenant and in the development of the tabernacle, and then later, of course, in the temple, very clearly. Such that Christ in the Old Testament, God in the Old Testament, becomes known as he who sits upon the cherubim, referring to that mercy seat that was on the top of the Ark of the Covenant that was carved to include two cherubs, or two angels, with their wings outstretched, and those wings presented the mercy seat upon which God himself would make his presence known to his people. It was literally his throne to his people. So the angelic ministry is much more visible in the Old Testament through these depictions and activities. Well, let's go back to Tobit, because it's such a wonderful story, and Raphael is one of those great archangels that we're celebrating this week. I told you a little bit about the story of Tobit, that Tobit was a Jew in exile from the tribe of Naphtali that had been taken by the Assyrians and was now living in Nineveh, where his people were suffering greatly. They had very few rights. They were often killed with impunity, and one of the ministries that he conducted, just as a person who loved his people, was that if somebody was found killed or murdered, he would be the one to make sure that that Jew got a proper burial. Because the families there had very little available to them, and often were afraid, to do what they had to do. But for his good deeds, of course, no good deed goes unpunished in the world. No good deed goes unrewarded in the life to come, but the reality is the devil and his minions really don't like us to do good, so they attack us for it in this life. Tobit is attacked, and he's struck blind. And then, on the flip side, there is the story of Sarah of Ecbatana, who had that horrible misfortune of having married 7 men, all of whom had been killed by the demon Asmodeus on the wedding night before they could even come together. And she was at her wit's end and was in fact praying that God allow her to die, because she knew that suicide would have brought shame on her own family, but she was ready to go, and she couldn't think of living any further. And it was in response to her prayer and to the prayers of Tobit that the Archangel Raphael comes forward as a mysterious figure. First, he just kind of appears as a man who joins Tobias, the son of Tobit, on the road and leads him along this journey to find Sarah, that will be his wife, and then is the one who teaches Tobias how he can defeat the demon Asmodeus and be free from that demon in their life forever. And that's this incredible story that goes on. It's also probably why Raphael is also associated with those who travel. He's an angel that protects travelers. And at the end of that story, and I'm going to pick up at chapter 12 of Tobit, towards the end of Tobit, so this is a spoiler warning to you. Tobit summoned his son Tobias and said to him, having been also healed of sight by this traveler, he says, "My son, see to the wages of the man who went with you, and we must add to them." He replied to him, "My father, it is no harm for me to give him half of what I brought on my journey." That's quite a bit. Half of all of his business adventure here. "For he brought me safely to you, healed my wife, and brought me the silver. Likewise, he healed you." So he credits this strange traveler with him for all the good turns of fortune that they had. And the elderly man, Tobit, replies to his son, "You more than earned it." So he called the angel and said to him, "Take half of everything you brought. We started this journey together, we finish it together, you take half." And this is where it gets really interesting, if it's not interested you already. Then Raphael secretly called the 2 of them and said to them, "Bless God and give thanks. Ascribe greatness to him and give thanks in the presence of all the living for what he has done for you. It is good to bless God, to exalt his name. Make known the words of God's works honorably, and do not delay to give thanks to him." Okay? So, you want us to give thanks. All right. So what is this all about? Then he says this: "It is noble to keep hidden the secret of a king, but glorious to unveil the works of God. Do good, and evil will not find you. Prayer is good with fasting, almsgiving, and righteousness. A few prayers with righteousness are better than many with wrongdoing. It is better to do almsgiving than to lay up gold. For almsgiving rescues one from death, and it will wash away every sin. Those who do almsgiving and are righteous will be full of life, but those who sin are enemies of their own life." Okay. Why is he telling them all these things? This is odd. This is interesting. I mean, he's reaffirming for them all the good things that they have done. And now the reveal. He says, "I will not hide anything from you. Indeed, I did say that it is good to conceal the secret of a king, but to reveal gloriously the works of God. Now when you and your daughter-in-law Sarah prayed, I brought the remembrance of your prayer before the Holy One. When you also buried the dead, I was likewise present with you. Then too, when you did not hesitate to stand up and leave your dinner so as to depart and care for the dead, your doing what is good did not escape me, but I was with you. Now God sent me to heal you and Sarah, your daughter-in-law. For I am Raphael, one of the 7 holy angels who report the prayers of the saints and who enter before the glory of the Holy One. I don't know about you, but this would be pretty astounding. This would be, to the core of my being, shocking, right? How did this person know any of this? How did they see me in secret when I prayed? How did they know that I was eating dinner and then I left to go to take care of somebody when I heard of them? And the 2 of them were troubled and fell upon their faces. Could any of us do anything different? For they were afraid. We've heard this language before, right? When they encountered the disciples, encountered the Lord on Mount Tabor, they fell down and they were afraid. When the myrrh-bearing women came to the tomb and heard the angels, they fell down on their faces and they were afraid. This is an overwhelming epiphany. It's an experience of something truly supernatural. You know, intellectually we can grasp this. But the reality is, if we encountered it in direct, immediate, present life, we would be terrified. Because everything we thought we knew about reality would be completely reversed at that point. But he said to them, Raphael said, do not be afraid. Sounds familiar, right? Do not be afraid, for peace shall be with you. But bless God forever. For I did not come of my own good will, but rather by the will of our God. Therefore bless him forever. All these days I appeared to you. I did not eat or drink, but you were seeing a vision. Now give thanks to God, because I am ascending to him who sent me. Write in a book everything that was accomplished. And then they stood up, but no longer saw him. They acknowledged the great and wondrous works of God and how the angel of the Lord appeared to them. A lot of this should resonate with us because it has a pattern to it, which we also see in the life of Christ. There's no doubt in my mind, reading this and recognizing that this is in the cultural treasure of the Jewish people, that not only were those people who said about Christ, by the power of demons, he drives out demons, there were probably many who saw in him the life and activity of angelic power. And there were probably many who saw this encounter with the woman on the road to Jairus' house, and even the healing of the child as an angelic intercession. And truly, that's not inappropriate. That's not to diminish Christ, but actually to represent that the angels themselves are images and icons of the one true God themselves, revealing to us his way of doing things. Whereas though they say, bless God and thank him, Christ himself says, if you have seen the Father, you have seen me. So he establishes himself as greater than the angels. And it's to that point that I'd now like to turn and talk about these other 2 angels that we celebrate on Tuesday, Gabriel and Michael. Because these are the only other 2 ones that are referenced in our Old Testament, as well as in the New Testament. And likewise, and particularly in the prophecy of Daniel, it is the prophet Daniel who introduces us to these angels by name. It's only until later, until the time of the deportation to Babylon, that angels start getting called by names. Until then, they're always the angel of the Lord, a messenger, a spirit, but never known by name. But here, they begin to name themselves as they reveal. And what they reveal is amazing. It's not just that they heal somebody who's blind, or that they teach somebody to do good and thanks God, right? These angels came to reveal to us our salvation. In fact, what we know about Christ from the Old Testament comes a great deal from the mouths of angels. And then in the New Testament, again, we see the same pattern. The angels proclaiming the Annunciation, the angels proclaiming the resurrection, even the return, the second coming, and the ascension. Why do you stare up? The one you see who is gone will come back. And of course, Christ himself says that the second coming will be ushered in with the trumpets of angels, right? So if we look at Daniel chapter 8, and I'm going to read a couple big chunks from Daniel, and as the angels and the spirits guide me, I will comment. But I think it's so powerful, these stories. I just wanted to share them with you. I don't really have anything organized to say about them because honestly, it would take way more time than it would take a lifetime to unpack what these angels are doing. And I know there's a lot of people who have tried. There's a guy from my hometown who's a televangelist who had a show where every week he would try to take the prophecies, especially the prophecies of Daniel, and try to explain the recent geopolitical situation in terms of fulfilling those prophecies, which was amazing because every week the same prophecies were somehow being fulfilled. So I don't know how that works, but pretty incredible stuff. I wouldn't dare to try that because I think I know where that kind of stuff comes from. But I will say it reveals to us, again, the pattern and the working of God in the life of the world, as well as the pattern of the evil one and his schemes. So, yes, maybe it was fulfilling prophecy each week, because each week God is still doing what God does, and the devil is still doing what the devil does. So the pattern is the same. Okay, so Daniel chapter 8. Then it happened when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the meaning, that suddenly there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. Meaning, it's not a human being, but something else. The idea of angels with the big wings is a later iconic development. Of course, the cherubs have their wings, but whenever they encounter the angels, you don't see any description of wings, just that they appear like normal people. They look like normal human beings. Maybe sometimes radiant or something like that, maybe clothed in white. But if they had wings, they left that out, which is a pretty incredible thing. I would have said, wow, it had wings! They didn't do that. And it says, I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai who called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So the one with the appearance of a man, who is called out as Gabriel, came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. Again, the same pattern. But he said to me, understand, son of man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. So Daniel's having messianic visions and apocalyptic visions, which is why people have loved to try to unlock the secrets and the mysteries of these bizarre visions. Later we read in Daniel chapter 9, while I was speaking, praying, and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, yes, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, when he says the man Gabriel, it's not to say he's a human, but the one with the appearance of a man. The man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, that must be the wings, reached me about the time of the evening offering, which evening prayers is Vespers time. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I have now come forth to give you skill to understand. At the beginning of your supplications, the command went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore, consider the matter and understand the vision. And so Gabriel is the one who unpacks for Daniel the vision and explains what is to come. It's still very vague and difficult, and that's why I'm not going to try to unpack it for you, because it would take a long time and a lot of research. But nonetheless, you can see the angel announcing God's plan to Daniel and revealing to him what is to come. And it gets into all that scary stuff about the kingdoms that will rise and the visions of the beasts and this kind of stuff. And this is not his only encounter with the angels. We read that in chapter 10 of Daniel. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel whose name was called Belteshazzar. The message was true, but the appointed time was long. And he understood the message and had understanding of the vision. So we read, in those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant food, no meat or wine came into my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all till the 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Now on the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river that is the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man, clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like torches of fire, his arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision, but a great terror fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Something was happening. Something incredible and unprecedented. Therefore I was left alone when I saw this great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me. I retained no strength. You ever felt such terror that your body went limp, that you were paralyzed? You ever have a dream like that? And then you try to move, and you're like, you can't will yourself to even move. I think this is one of those experiences for him. Yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. And suddenly a hand touched me, which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for I have now been sent to you. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. And he said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision refers to many days yet to come. So this being is accompanied by Michael, the archangel, the commander of the heavenly hosts, who helps him in his resistance to what is happening. And when he had spoken such words to me, I turned my face toward the ground and became speechless. And suddenly one having the likeness of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke, saying to him who stood before me, My Lord, because of the vision my sorrows have overwhelmed me, and I have retained no strength. For how can this servant of my Lord talk with you, my Lord? As for me, no strength remains in me now, nor is any breath left in me. And then again, the one having the likeness of the man touched me and strengthened me. This reminds me so greatly of the Lord himself being ministered to by angels. When you hear in the gospel that after the temptation with the devil, he is ministered to by angels, and that after the agony in the garden, an angel comes and ministers to him. This is the kind of ministry that we're talking to. An angel that comes and touches and strengthens and restores the vigor and the strength and the life to the man of God. And he said, oh man, and by the way, the fathers of the church, when they interpret this section, say that this person who now comes and touches him is not the one he just saw. That one with the eyes like lightning and fire and the beryl and all that, the bronze legs, is actually for them, and from a very early time in the church. St. Hilary is one of the earliest, who says that is Christ himself, the pre-incarnate Word of God revealing himself. So he's having a direct epiphany of the divine in this amazing figure that, he falls down like the apostles do at the Transfiguration. It's a similar type of revelation. But that this one having the likeness of a man, right? He's not flashing with lightning, but he's just looks like one of us, who comes and ministers to him, touching the lips, which is a very Eucharistic image, of course, giving him something in his mouth so that he can speak, is the one who ministers to him. And then he said, the angel says to him, O man greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be to you. Be strong. Yes, be strong. So when he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. I can hear you now. I can finally sit up and listen. Then he said, do you know why I have come to you? And now I must return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I have gone forth, indeed the prince of Greece will come. The angels are constantly working in battles to fight the devil, because the devil definitely loves war, and he's always going after it. But I will tell you what is noted in the scripture of truth, and no one upholds me against these except Michael your prince. So only, I have to tell you quick, and I have to go back because Archangel Michael needs my help. It's an incredible vision. And then, of course, he explains more about the end times and times to come, which are so incredible. These prophecies that Daniel had, some of them referred to the Messiah and were fulfilled quite literally. For example, there was saying that there would be 70 times 7 weeks and the Messiah would come. And from the point of the building of the temple. And if you look at the history of it, it's absolutely amazing. King Artaxerxes gave the permission to rebuild the temple in, I believe it's 438, 468, however it works, my math isn't failing. But if you go 490 years, which is 70 times 7, 70 times 7 weeks of years, you end up on April of AD 32, which is when we believe Christ himself was resurrected from the dead. When he, who had his temple destroyed, rebuilt the temple in 3 days. So it's an amazing prophecy, and one of those things that we point to as having been fulfilled in Christ. But the other prophecies have to do with the end of times. And this is what I want to share with you, because these are the things we are waiting for now. In Daniel 12, at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And that your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. So this is about the second coming. And remember, last week I referred to what Christ himself said to his 70 disciples when they came back and said, Lord, even the demons are subject in your name to us. And he said, don't be glad because of that, but be glad because your names are written in the book of life. This is a direct reference to this image here in Daniel, this book. Everyone written in the book of life, resurrected to life. Those who are wise shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase, worldly knowledge. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood 2 others, one on this river bank and the other on the other river bank. And one said to the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. So this time, times, and a half a time usually refers to 3.5, which they interpret in many different ways, of course. And although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the end, the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. But you, Go your way till the end, for you shall rest, and will arise to your inheritance at the end of days. So this is this climactic ending to these visions of Daniel. And they leave us with a mystery, with these numerological puzzles. But we should heed the word of the angel to Daniel. When he asks, what does it mean? What does it mean? Go your way, the book is sealed. Focus on what matters. Christians say, when will the end be? Well, it'll be either today or sometime after today. Go your way, the book has been sealed. The book has been sealed. Focus on what matters. Many shall be purified and made white and refined. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Our job as Christians is to be prepared in every generation and in every day. And every generation has had people try to interpret these scriptures and figure out when the end is. And of course, they looked for the signs in their own day. And you know what? They found them. Because the pattern is there, always. The devil is still doing what the devil does, and the Lord is still doing what the Lord does, and the world still keeps working and grinding away the way it grinds away. So in every generation since then, the signs of the end times have been upon us. But as the Lord said, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars and calamities, but that is just the beginning. Focus on today, in your life today. Do the good, and evil will not find you. Heed the words of the angels that have been revealed so gloriously and powerfully to us. Listen to what they have to say. Through their prayers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us.